I was in the middle of organizing a high-profile art exhibit, juggling a million tasks at once, when my phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. I glanced at the screen, saw Ethan's name, and picked up immediately. His voice was urgent, almost frantic, and it sent a shiver down my spine. "Riley, we need to talk. Can you come over tonight? My family wants to have dinner." Now, let me back up a bit. My name's Riley. I'm an event planner at a prestigious art gallery, and I love what I do. It's chaotic but thrilling, like trying to tame a whirlwind. My life was pretty much a balancing act between my career and my relationship with Ethan, my fiancé. He's an environmental scientist, a bit introverted but genuinely supportive. We've been together for a while, and things were going well, or so I thought. The moment I walked into Ethan's family home, I felt the tension. It was almost tangible, like walking through a thick fog. Lorraine, Ethan's mother, greeted me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Riley, dear, nice to see you," she said, her voice dripping with a sweetness that felt more like syrup than honey. Vanessa, Ethan's sister, was already at the table, her eyes scanning me like I was some kind of puzzle she was trying to solve. "Riley," she said, nodding slightly. Her tone was polite, but there was an edge to it, a subtle challenge that made my skin prickle. Dinner started off with the usual small talk, but I could feel the undercurrents. Lorraine asked questions about my work. Her interest too pointed to be genuine curiosity. "So, Riley, how do you manage such a demanding job and still find time for Ethan?" she asked, her eyes fixed on me. I smiled, trying to keep my tone light. "It's all about balance, I guess. Ethan's really supportive, and that helps a lot." Vanessa chimed in, her voice smooth but with a hint of something darker. "It must be hard, though. I mean, with all the late nights and events, it must take a toll on your relationship." I felt a flicker of irritation but kept my composure. "We make it work. We always find time for each other." Ethan, sitting beside me, reached for my hand under the table, giving it a reassuring squeeze. But his silence was unnerving. He seemed distant, preoccupied, and it made me uneasy. As dinner went on, the conversation shifted, but the tension didn't. Vanessa's comments were laced with subtle digs, and Lorraine's questions felt more like interrogations. I could sense their skepticism, their doubt about me, and it stung. After dinner, as I was helping clear the table, Vanessa approached me in the kitchen. "You know, Riley," she said, her voice low, "Ethan's always been the type to trust too easily. I just hope you're as committed to him as he is to you." The insinuation was clear, and it hit me like a punch to the gut. I forced a smile, refusing to let her see how much her words affected me. "I love Ethan," I said simply, meeting her gaze. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and for a moment I saw something flicker there, fear, maybe, or insecurity. But then it was gone, replaced by that cool, calculating look. On the drive home, Ethan was quiet, lost in thought. I wanted to ask him what was going on, why his family seemed so hostile, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I focused on the road, my mind racing with questions. As we pulled up to our apartment, Ethan finally spoke. "I'm sorry about tonight, Riley. I didn't expect it to be so tense." I sighed, leaning back in my seat. "It's okay. I just wish I knew what was really going on." He hesitated, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. "There's something I need to tell you, but not tonight. Can we talk tomorrow?" His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken truths. I nodded, trying to ignore the knot of anxiety tightening in my chest. As I lay in bed that night, staring up at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Something was brewing beneath the surface, something that could change everything. And I had a sinking feeling that Vanessa was at the center of it all. The next morning, Ethan and I sat across from each other at our small kitchen table, the sunlight streaming through the window, casting long shadows. I could see the worry etched on his face, and it mirrored the unease in my own heart. We needed to talk about last night, about the engagement announcement that was supposed to be a celebration but turned into a battlefield. "Ethan," I began, trying to keep my voice steady, "about your family. I just don't understand why they reacted that way." He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "I know. It's just complicated. Vanessa's always been protective, and my mom, well, she's set in her ways." I reached for his hand, needing the connection. "I want to get along with them, Ethan, but it's like everything I do is wrong in their eyes." He squeezed my hand, his eyes softening. "We'll figure it out, Riley. I promise." I nodded, trying to believe him, but the doubt lingered. As I got ready for work, I couldn't shake the feeling that Vanessa was more than just protective. There was something else driving her hostility, something deeper. At the gallery, I threw myself into my work, organizing the upcoming exhibit. The familiar chaos helped distract me, but my mind kept drifting back to Ethan's family. I needed to talk to someone who wasn't caught up in the middle of it all, someone who could give me perspective. During lunch, I called Mia, my best friend and confidant. We met at a small cafe near the gallery, and as soon as I saw her, I felt a wave of relief. Mia had a way of cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of things. "So," she said, taking a sip of her coffee, "what's going on with Ethan's family?" I told her everything, from the engagement dinner to Vanessa's passive-aggressive comments. Mia listened, her expression shifting from curious to concerned. "Riley," she said, leaning forward, "it sounds like Vanessa's got some serious control issues. Maybe she's afraid of losing her brother to you." I nodded, grateful for her insight. "But why?" "I mean, I'm not trying to take him away. I just want to be a part of his life." Mia shrugged. "People like Vanessa, they thrive on control. Maybe she's scared that if Ethan marries you, she won't have the same influence over him." Her words made sense, but they also added another layer of complexity to an already tangled situation. I thanked Mia for her advice, feeling a little more grounded as I headed back to work. That evening, as Ethan and I were preparing dinner, my phone buzzed with a message from Vanessa. It was a list of wedding venues, all of which were far from what Ethan and I had discussed. It was a subtle but clear attempt to steer the wedding plans in her direction. "Look at this," I said, handing my phone to Ethan. "She's trying to take over our wedding." He frowned, scrolling through the list. "I'll talk to her, Riley. She needs to back off." I watched him, wondering if he would really stand up to his sister. I wanted to believe he would, but the doubt lingered. The next few days were a blur of work and wedding planning, with Vanessa's interference becoming more pronounced. She questioned every decision, sowing seeds of doubt in Ethan's mind. I could see the strain it was putting on him, and it hurt to watch him caught in the middle. Then, one evening, as we were going over the guest list, Ethan hesitated. "Riley, do you think we should reconsider the venue? Vanessa made some good points about the one we chose." I felt a flash of frustration. "Ethan, we picked that venue because it means something to us, not because it fits Vanessa's idea of a perfect wedding." He looked torn, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. "I know, but maybe she's right. Maybe we should think about it." His words stung, and I realized how deeply Vanessa's influence ran. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Ethan, this is our wedding. We should make the decisions, not Vanessa." He nodded, but the doubt lingered, and I knew this was far from over. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that things were spiraling out of control. Vanessa was driving a wedge between us, and I didn't know how to stop it. But I was determined to find a way, even if it meant confronting Vanessa head-on. The stakes were too high to back down now. The gallery was buzzing with activity when I stumbled upon the first hint of Vanessa's betrayal. I was flipping through emails on my phone, trying to juggle the latest exhibit details, when a message caught my eye. It was from an unknown sender with a subject line that simply read, "FYI." Curiosity piqued, I opened it, only to find a screenshot of a social media post. It was Vanessa in some private group making snide comments about me and my dedication to my job. She implied that my late nights were more about secret rendezvous than art exhibits. The words were like a punch to the gut, each one a sharp reminder of her disdain. My hands shook as I scrolled through the messages, my mind racing. How could she stoop so low? The thought of her spreading such lies made my blood boil. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside me. This was a new level of betrayal, and I needed to handle it carefully. That evening, I confronted Ethan. We were in the living room, the warm glow of the lamp casting soft shadows. I handed him my phone, letting him read Vanessa's words for himself. His face fell, a mix of disbelief and anger flickering in his eyes. "Riley, I had no idea," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I can't believe she would do this." I nodded, my heart heavy. "I don't know what to do, Ethan. She's trying to ruin my reputation, and it's not just about us anymore. It's my career." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "I'll talk to her. This has to stop." But his words, though well-meaning, felt hollow. I needed more than promises. I needed action. And as much as I wanted to believe he could fix this, I knew it was up to me to protect myself. The next day, I met Mia for lunch again, needing her perspective. Her eyes widened as I showed her the messages. "Riley, this is serious. You can't let her get away with this." I nodded, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "I know, but what can I do? I can't just confront her without proof." Mia leaned back, thoughtful. "You need to find out why she's doing this. There has to be a reason, something she's hiding." Her words struck a chord, and I realized she was right. Vanessa's actions were driven by more than just jealousy or control. There was something deeper, something I needed to uncover. That evening, as I was leaving the gallery, I received another anonymous message. This one was different, though. It hinted at Vanessa's own secrets, suggesting that her life wasn't as perfect as she portrayed. My curiosity piqued. I decided to dig deeper. Over the next few days, I started piecing together the puzzle. I reached out to a few contacts, discreetly asking questions and gathering information. It was risky, but I needed to know the truth. Then, just as I was beginning to lose hope, I received a tip that changed everything. Vanessa had been involved in a scandal at her law firm, something that had been quietly swept under the rug. It was a revelation that added a new layer to her actions, hinting at vulnerability and hypocrisy. Armed with this new information, I felt a surge of determination. Vanessa's facade was starting to crack, and I was ready to expose it. But I knew I had to be careful. This was a delicate dance, and one wrong move could ruin everything. That night, I sat down with Ethan, ready to share what I had discovered. "Ethan, there's something you need to know about Vanessa," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. He listened intently as I laid out the evidence, his expression shifting from shock to anger. "I can't believe she would go this far," he said, his voice tight with emotion. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. "I need to confront her, Ethan. This can't go on." He took my hand, his grip firm. "I'm with you, Riley. Whatever you need, I'm here." His support meant everything, but I knew this was a battle I had to face head-on. Vanessa's web of lies was unraveling, and it was time to bring the truth to light. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a sense of clarity. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but I was ready to face them. Justice was within reach, and I was determined to see it through. The air in our apartment felt thick with unspoken words as Ethan and I prepared dinner. I could sense the tension between us, a silent acknowledgement of the storm brewing just outside our walls. Vanessa's manipulations had pushed us to the edge, and I knew we were teetering on a precipice. "Ethan," I said, breaking the uneasy silence, "we need to talk about the wedding. About everything." He paused, setting down the knife he was using to chop vegetables. "I know, Riley. It's just, there's so much pressure from my family." I nodded, trying to keep my voice calm. "I understand, but we can't let them dictate our lives. This is about us, not them." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "You're right. I just wish things were simpler." As we sat down to eat, I noticed a missed call from an unknown number on my phone. Curiosity piqued. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway to return the call. "Hello," I said, my voice echoing slightly in the narrow space. "Riley Thompson?" a man's voice replied. "This is Mark, the private investigator you contacted." My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't expected to hear from him so soon. "Yes, that's me. Do you have any news?" "I do," he said, his tone serious. "I've found something you might want to see. It involves Vanessa Wh8r. I arranged to meet him the next day, my mind racing with possibilities. As I returned to the table, Ethan gave me a questioning look. "Who was that?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "Just someone from work." I lied, not wanting to worry him until I had more information. The following day, I met Mark at a small cafe on the outskirts of town. He was a no-nonsense type, straight to the point. As we sat down, he handed me a folder, his expression unreadable. "What's this?" I asked, opening it with a mix of anticipation and dread. "Evidence," he replied simply. "Vanessa's been involved in some questionable activities. I thought you'd want to know." Inside the folder were documents and photographs, each one more damning than the last. Vanessa had been using her position at the law firm to manipulate clients, bending the rules to her advantage. It was a tangled web of deceit, and it explained so much about her need for control. I felt a mix of vindication and sadness as I absorbed the information. Vanessa's actions had been driven by fear, a desperate attempt to maintain her facade. But this was more than just a personal vendetta. It was a professional scandal waiting to explode. As I left the cafe, my mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. I had the evidence I needed to confront Vanessa, but the implications were enormous. This wasn't just about clearing my name anymore. It was about exposing the truth and protecting those who might be hurt by her actions. Back home, I found Ethan in the living room, his expression tense. "Riley, we need to talk," he said, his voice strained. I nodded, bracing myself for whatever was coming. "What's on your mind?" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "My mom called. She wants us to postpone the wedding. She thinks we need more time." The request felt like a slap in the face, a stark reminder of the uphill battle we were fighting. "And what do you think?" I asked, trying to keep the hurt out of my voice. He looked torn, his loyalty divided. "I don't know, Riley. I love you, but this is tearing us apart." His words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken fears. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. "Ethan, I found something out about Vanessa. Something big." His eyes widened, a mix of surprise and apprehension. "What do you mean?" I handed him the folder, watching as he flipped through the contents. His expression shifted from shock to anger, and I could see the realization dawning on him. "This changes everything," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, feeling a surge of determination. "We can't let her control us anymore, Ethan. We need to stand up to her." He met my gaze, a newfound resolve in his eyes. "You're right. We can't let her win." As we sat together, the weight of the situation settled over us. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but for the first time, I felt a glimmer of hope. We were stronger together, and with the truth on our side, we could face whatever came next. The tension in the air was palpable as Ethan and I drove to his parents' house for yet another family gathering. This time, though, the stakes were much higher. I had the evidence of Vanessa's deceit tucked securely in my bag, and my heart pounded with a mix of anticipation and dread. Today could change everything. As we pulled into the driveway, Ethan reached for my hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" he asked, his voice tinged with concern. I nodded, steeling myself for what lay ahead. "I have to be. This can't go on." Inside, Lorraine greeted us with her usual formal warmth, but I could sense an underlying tension. Vanessa was already there, sitting with Greg and chatting as if nothing was amiss. Her smile was bright, but her eyes darted toward me with a hint of suspicion. We settled into the living room, the atmosphere thick with unspoken words. I could feel my pulse quicken as I glanced around, my mind racing with everything I needed to say. Ethan cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention. "Mom, Dad, there's something we need to discuss." Vanessa's eyes narrowed slightly, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind. "What is it?" she asked, her tone deceptively casual. I took a deep breath, reaching into my bag and pulling out the folder. "I found something out about you, Vanessa. Something that explains a lot." Her smile faltered, replaced by a mask of feigned innocence. "I have no idea what you're talking about." I opened the folder, laying the documents out on the coffee table for everyone to see. "These are records of your dealings at the law firm. You've been manipulating clients, Vanessa, using your position for personal gain." The room fell silent, the weight of the accusation hanging in the air. Vanessa's face went pale, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. Lorraine gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Vanessa, is this true?" Vanessa's composure cracked, anger flaring in her gaze. "This is ridiculous. Riley, you're just trying to turn my family against me." Ethan stood by my side, his expression resolute. "Vanessa, we need the truth. This isn't just about us anymore." Greg looked between us, confusion etched on his face. "Vanessa, what is this?" She hesitated, her facade crumbling. "I did what I had to do. You don't understand the pressure I'm under." The room erupted into chaos, voices overlapping as everyone tried to make sense of the situation. I watched Vanessa, her desperation evident as she scrambled to regain control. Lorraine's voice cut through the noise, firm and authoritative. "Enough. Vanessa, you need to explain yourself." Vanessa's eyes darted around the room, searching for an ally, but finding none. "I was protecting our family, keeping everything together." Her words hung in the air, a weak justification that did little to quell the rising tension. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, but I couldn't let that deter me from what needed to be done. Ethan turned to me, his expression conflicted. "Riley, what do we do now?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on me. "We can't let this continue. Vanessa needs to face the consequences of her actions." Vanessa's eyes blazed with anger, but there was a hint of resignation there too. "You think you're so righteous, Riley, but you don't know what it's like to be me." Her words struck a chord, and I realized that beneath her manipulations lay a deep-seated fear of losing control. But that didn't excuse what she'd done. As the conversation continued, I felt a shift within me. This wasn't just about revenge or justice anymore. It was about doing what was right, even if it meant facing uncomfortable truths. The gathering ended with Vanessa storming out, her world unraveling around her. Lorraine looked shaken, Greg bewildered by the revelations. Ethan and I stayed behind, helping to pick up the pieces. As we left, I felt a sense of clarity. The path ahead was uncertain, but I knew I was ready to face it. I had learned that true justice wasn't about retribution. It was about standing up for what was right, even when it was difficult. Ethan squeezed my hand as we drove home, a silent promise that we would face whatever came next together. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. The drive back from Ethan's parents' house was silent, the weight of the confrontation pressing down on us like a heavy fog. I stared out the window, watching the world blur past, my mind replaying the chaotic scene over and over. Despite the evidence laid bare, the fallout was more devastating than I had anticipated. When we got home, Ethan sank onto the couch, his face etched with exhaustion. "I can't believe it came to this," he murmured, rubbing his temples. I nodded, feeling a similar weariness seep into my bones. I thought exposing the truth would make things better, but now it feels like everything's falling apart. He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and determination. "We did the right thing, Riley. Vanessa's lies couldn't go on forever." But even as he said it, I could sense the doubt creeping in. The confrontation had left us both shaken, and the path forward seemed more uncertain than ever. The next morning, I received a call from Lorraine. Her voice was strained, the usual authoritative edge softened by something else, vulnerability perhaps. "Riley, can we talk? Just the two of us." I agreed, curious and a little apprehensive. We met at a quiet cafe, the kind of place where secrets could be shared without fear of being overheard. Lorraine looked tired, her usual poise replaced by a weariness that mirrored my own. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice low. "I know things have been difficult." I nodded, unsure of what to say. "They have. But I believe the truth needed to come out." She sighed, a deep, resigned sound. "Vanessa's always been complicated. I tried to protect her, to shield her from the consequences of her actions. But maybe that was a mistake." Her admission caught me off guard, a glimpse into the dynamics that had shaped their family. "It's not easy to see someone you love make mistakes," I said softly. Lorraine nodded, her eyes distant. "I just wanted to keep the family together. But now I'm not sure if that's even possible." The conversation left me with more questions than answers, a sense of unease settling over me as I headed back to the gallery. The situation felt more tangled than ever, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were teetering on the edge of something even more precarious. As I immersed myself in work, trying to find solace in the familiar chaos of event planning, my phone buzzed with a message from Mia. "Call me ASAP," it read, the urgency unmistakable. I stepped outside, dialing her number with a sense of foreboding. "Mia, what's going on?" Her voice was tense, a sharp contrast to her usual calm demeanor. "Riley, I just got a tip. Vanessa's not done. She's planning to take legal action against you for defamation." The words hit me like a punch to the gut, the breath leaving my lungs in a rush. "What? She can't be serious." "Riley, she's desperate. She's trying to salvage what's left of her reputation, and she's willing to drag you down with her." The ground seemed to shift beneath me, the precarious balance I'd been clinging to threatening to crumble entirely. "I don't know what to do, Mia. This could ruin everything. Stay strong, Riley. You have the truth on your side. But be careful. She's playing dirty." As I hung up, a wave of despair washed over me. Vanessa's vendetta had reached a new level, and the stakes had never been higher. I felt the weight of it pressing down on me, the path forward obscured by uncertainty and fear. That evening, Ethan and I sat in the dim light of our living room, the silence between us heavy with unspoken fears. I could see the worry etched on his face, a mirror of my own inner turmoil. "We're in this together, Riley," he said, his voice steady despite the tension. "No matter what happens." I nodded, grateful for his support even as doubt gnawed at the edges of my resolve. The situation felt hopeless, the odds stacked against us in a way I hadn't anticipated. But as I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, I realized something important. My fight wasn't just about clearing my name or exposing Vanessa's lies. It was about protecting the life Ethan and I were building, standing up for what was right even when the odds seemed insurmountable. The journey ahead was fraught with challenges, but I knew I couldn't back down now. I had come too far, and the truth was worth fighting for, no matter the cost. The tension in the room was electric as we gathered at Lorraine's house for what felt like the final showdown. Vanessa was there, her demeanor icy and composed, a stark contrast to the chaos swirling around us. Lorraine stood by the window, her face a mask of worry. Greg was absent, a telling sign of the fractures Vanessa's actions had caused. Ethan and I exchanged a glance, drawing strength from each other as we prepared to face the storm. The air was thick with anticipation, each of us aware that this confrontation would change everything. Vanessa broke the silence first, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "I suppose you're here to gloat, Riley. You think you've won?" I shook my head, keeping my voice steady. "This isn't about winning, Vanessa. It's about the truth." She smirked, her eyes cold and calculating. "Truth? You think exposing my personal life is some kind of moral victory?" Ethan stepped forward, his voice firm. "Vanessa, this isn't just about you. Your actions have hurt everyone around you." Her eyes flicked to him, a flash of vulnerability breaking through her facade. "I did what I had to do. You don't understand the pressure I'm under." Lorraine turned from the window, her voice soft but resolute. "Vanessa, we've all made mistakes. But this has gone too far." The room fell silent, the weight of Lorraine's words settling over us. Vanessa's composure wavered, her hands clenching into fists at her sides. "You think I wanted this? To be exposed like some criminal?" I took a deep breath, stepping forward. "Vanessa, we didn't want it to come to this either. But your actions left us no choice." Her gaze met mine, a storm of emotions swirling in her eyes, anger, fear, and something else I couldn't quite place. "And what about you, Riley? You're no saint. You think you can just waltz into this family and turn everyone against me?" I held her gaze, refusing to back down. "I never wanted to turn anyone against you. But I couldn't stand by and let you destroy everything Ethan and I have worked for." Vanessa's facade cracked, her voice rising with desperation. "You have no idea what it's like to feel everything slipping away, to lose control." The words hung in the air, a raw admission that cut through the tension. It was a glimpse into the fear that had driven her actions, a fear I could understand, even if I couldn't condone it. Lorraine stepped forward, her expression softening. "Vanessa, we can help you. But you need to let us in." Vanessa's eyes filled with tears, and for a moment, I saw the vulnerability beneath her tough exterior. But just as quickly, she blinked them away, her walls snapping back into place. "I don't need your help," she snapped, her voice laced with defiance. Ethan reached for my hand, his grip a steadying presence. "Vanessa, please. We want to move forward, but we can't do that if you're still trying to tear us apart." For a moment, I thought she might relent, but then her expression hardened. "Do what you want, but don't expect me to just roll over and play nice." The tension in the room was palpable, each of us caught in a web of conflicting emotions. I felt a pang of sadness for Vanessa, but I knew we couldn't let her continue down this path. As the confrontation reached its peak, an unexpected voice broke the silence. It was Greg, standing in the doorway, his expression one of quiet determination. "Vanessa, we need to talk." Her eyes widened, a flicker of panic crossing her face. "Greg, this isn't the time." He shook his head, his voice calm but firm. "It is. We need to figure this out, for us and for the family." The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. Vanessa's bravado faltered, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. As Greg led Vanessa out of the room, I felt a sense of resolution settle over me. The path ahead was still uncertain, but we had faced the storm and come out stronger for it. Ethan squeezed my hand, a silent promise that we would face whatever came next together. And as we left Lorraine's house, I felt a newfound sense of peace. The fight for justice had tested us in ways I hadn't anticipated, but it had also shown me the power of resilience and the importance of standing up for what was right. The weeks following the confrontation were a whirlwind of change and reflection. Ethan and I decided to step back from the chaos, focusing on rebuilding our lives away from the drama that had consumed us for so long. It was a decision that felt both liberating and daunting, but one we knew was necessary for our future. We found a small cottage on the outskirts of town, a peaceful retreat where we could finally breathe and plan for the life we wanted to build together. The days were filled with quiet moments, walks in the nearby woods, and the simple joy of each other's company. It was a stark contrast to the turmoil we'd endured, a chance to rediscover the love that had brought us together in the first place. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, Ethan turned to me, his expression thoughtful. "Do you ever think about what might have happened if we hadn't stood up to Vanessa?" I considered his question, the weight of it settling over me. "I think we would have lost ourselves trying to please everyone else," I replied, my voice steady. "But standing up for the truth, for us, was the right thing to do." He nodded, a soft smile playing on his lips. "I'm proud of us, Riley. We faced so much, but we came out stronger." As we sat there, I felt a deep sense of peace settle over me. The journey had been fraught with challenges, but it had also taught me the importance of resilience and the power of standing up for what was right. A few days later, we received a letter from Lorraine. It was a simple note, but her words carried a weight of sincerity and reflection. She apologized for the pain her family had caused and expressed a desire to mend the rift, to start anew. Ethan and I read the letter together, our emotions a mix of relief and hope. It was a step toward healing, a chance to rebuild relationships that had been strained by the past. As the days turned into weeks, we found ourselves settling into a new rhythm. I returned to the gallery, pouring my creativity into new exhibits and finding joy in the work I loved. Ethan continued his research, his passion for the environment rekindled by the peace we had found. One afternoon, as I was organizing a new exhibit, Mia stopped by, her presence a welcome reminder of the support that had carried me through the darkest times. "How's life in the countryside treating you?" she asked, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. "It's exactly what we needed. A fresh start." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I'm glad, Riley. You deserve this happiness." As we chatted, I felt a sense of closure settling over me. The journey had been difficult, but it had also been transformative. I had learned to stand up for myself, to fight for the truth, and to cherish the love that had withstood the storm. But even as we moved forward, there was a lingering question in my mind, a curiosity about Vanessa's future. She had faced the consequences of her actions, but I couldn't help but wonder if she would find her own path to redemption. One evening, as Ethan and I sat by the fire, I voiced my thoughts. "Do you think Vanessa will be okay?" He considered my question, his gaze thoughtful. "I hope so. Everyone deserves a chance to change, to find their way back." His words resonated with me, a reminder of the complexity of human nature and the potential for growth and forgiveness. It was a subtle twist in our resolution, a lingering question that added depth to our journey. As the fire crackled softly, I felt a sense of completion. Our story had been one of struggle and triumph, of love and justice. And though some questions remained, I knew we had found our own peace, a peace built on truth, resilience, and the unwavering belief in the power of love. With Ethan by my side, I looked toward the future with hope, ready to embrace whatever came next. Our journey had taught us to stand strong, to cherish the bonds that truly mattered, and to find beauty in the imperfect, unpredictable path of life.